I've literally watched all the stitches to this video, but this story that I'm about to tell today, even though it happened years ago, still gives me chills, and I feel like it has a lot to do with why I quit my job. So I used to work in long-term care, for those of you that don't know, pretty much a nursing home. I was a certified nursing assistant out of high school. This was my first big girl job, okay? So when I first started, I didn't know a lot about the different types of shifts, but there's pretty much 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. I worked the 7 to 3, which was 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. As time went on, I slowly started to transition to 3 to 11 to work around my college courses, but every now and then I would pick up an 11 to 7 shift. It didn't take long before I started working there where people were telling me about this one particular resident that had an issue with people of a certain color coming into his room. I didn't have too much interaction with this resident because, like I said, I only worked 7 to 3, and you didn't have to do a lot for him. Just go in and check on him and make sure he was okay. Bring him his food tray. Every now and then he might ask you for help to go to the bathroom, but that was about it. I had heard that this resident could get kind of nasty sometimes. I also heard that he had dementia, so he was like seeing stuff. And I also remember going in his room a couple times and seeing all of the mirrors in his room covered up. This is gonna come back later. So on my first 11 to 7, we'll call this nurse Patty. Patty pulled me aside and she was like, hey, this is the list of people, pretty much doing a report for when I first, clocked in, starting my shift. She told me who I had, who was total assist, which I had to do everything for, and who I could pretty much, let. So I noticed that this list had this certain patient's number on it, this certain resident's number on it. His room number was on there. But instead of it saying, just limited assistance or whatever, it was like total assist. So I asked, I'm like, I know I have him during the day and I just go in and check on him and make sure he's okay. If he rings a call light, I'll go in. But other than that, that's about it. When did he become a total assist? So she proceeds to tell me that the night before, he got so scared and so frantic and thought something was in his room that he jumped out of his bed and fell on the floor and did something to his hip. So at this point, currently, he's a total assist, meaning I have to go in, I have to check on him, I have to do everything for him. I said, cool, no problem. I start doing my rounds, I start checking on my people, passing out ice water, changing people, as I normally do. Literally, not even 15 minutes into my shift, his call light is on. I go in, I make sure everything's okay. As soon as I get in, I kid you not, this man is literally in the fetal position. I walk up to him, and I ask him if everything's okay. Obviously, when I walk up to him, I'm very careful, because like I stated before, he did not like people of my color coming into his room. During the day, he would make a big deal out of this. Like, if he could get a nurse or a nursing assistant of a different color, he definitely would. He did not pay that any mind. He literally jumped straight into, they're in here, they're after me, please help me. I'm looking like, who is they? He's like, you don't see that little boy behind you? No, I can't say that I do, sir. So it took me literally...
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true.
Not really a ghost story, but a paranormal one nonetheless. When I was living in Pennsylvania, when I was like 15, 16, something like that, I was going to my friend's house, and it was sometime during the winter, and in the snow, I could see tracks, like really big dog tracks, like the direction I was going. I lived on top of this like really big hill, and when I got to the bottom, and I could cut through the baseball field, and my friend's house was like right on the other side. So as I approached the gate, I saw these really big dog prints, like huge, like it had to be a really big dog. And then as I was like walking, because again they were going the exact same way I was going, which really freaked me out, they started kind of shrinking and changing. And the next thing I know, the dog prints are completely gone. And it's just like a human foot. Like someone was walking in their bare feet. To this day, I have no idea what the hell was going on. I didn't really tell no one because I figured they would think I was crazy. Which, I don't know why I cared, because I was the freaking crazy person in town anyway. But yeah. I have many more stories, similar to that. So there's mine.
I have one ghost story that's completely true, and it freaks me out because I didn't realize it was a ghost experience or a ghost encounter until years later when it was verified by my family. There's a lot of background information that ties into this, so I'll do my best to explain it. But my parents divorced when I was younger, and when I was 9, around 2005, my dad, my older sister, and I moved into this older house. This is actually a picture of where it took place. This house was built in 1920. It was a very old house, and it was very much a fixer-upper when we moved in. My dad is a very handy man, and he redid almost every single room in this. This happened about 2 or 3 years after we moved into the house, And this is the staircase that goes upstairs to the bedrooms. There was my dad's bedroom, and then my older sister and I, we had connecting rooms and a bathroom. We also had a desktop computer right here. It was facing the wall, so I would be sitting here like this, playing my Neopets and my 101 Dalmatians. At this time, my dad was renovating the upstairs bathroom, and I believe it was summertime. I was sitting at the desktop computer playing my games, and this boy that was about 17 or 19 years old walked behind me and went up the stairs, and I assumed he was going up to the bathroom to help my dad carry something heavy. I really thought nothing of it because my dad was home, so I figured he wouldn't let some random guy in our house. I just keep playing my games. My dad walks in from the kitchen a couple minutes later, and I was like, "Oh, Dad, that kid that's helping you with the upstairs bathroom just walked upstairs." And my dad said, "Oh, okay, thanks." And he goes upstairs, and he doesn't say anything about it. I never think anything of it, so never gets brought up again. We ended up living in the house until after I graduated high school. And a year after I graduated high school, my dad and my stepmom, they got married a couple years later than this happening. They sold the house, and we were at their new house, and somehow the topics of ghosts got brought up, maybe joking about how this old house was haunted or something. And I said, "I believe in ghosts. I don't have any personal experiences, but I do believe that there's spirits or ghosts." And my dad and my stepmom were standing there, and they're like, "Oh, you actually do have a ghost experience." I was like, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Oh, you remember when my dad was renovating the upstairs bathroom, and you said that boy went upstairs to help?" And I was like, "Yeah, vaguely. Why?" He said, "I did all of my home renovation projects by myself, and you were not the only person to see him on the staircase." So I was like, "What do you mean other people saw him? And why wouldn't you say anything?" So it turns out before my dad got married to my stepmom, he had another girlfriend. And when I was at our mom's house, my dad and her were hanging out, and she was upstairs in the bedroom, and my dad wasn't in the room, but she saw the same boy standing in the corner of their bedroom, and she told my dad about it, and my dad was like, "Oh, okay." And years later, when my dad was married to my stepmom and she moved into the house, she also was in the bedroom upstairs, heard a noise, and I think my dad was hunting at our cabin at the time, so she was home alone. She came out from her bedroom onto the landing up here, looked down, and saw an 18-year-old boy staring upstairs. I have goosebumps. It's so creepy. And my stepmom is very freaked out by paranormal. She doesn't even watch scary movies because she gets bad night terrors, so she thought, "Oh, maybe I'm dreaming," because that's right, she said it woke her up from sleep, that noise. My older sister in high school had some kidney issues, and she would wake up at like 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom, so she would come out of our room and use the bathroom. And she heard a noise, and she looked down the stairs and saw him too, and she thought she was dreaming. And we've all talked about it now, years later, now that we're not in the house, and I remember him wearing like tan pants and a blue shirt, and that's what my sister remembered seeing, and my stepmom remembered seeing. And the crazy thing is, we never talked to each other about it because they assumed they were dreaming. I assumed my dad let this neighborhood kid in the house. For some backstory, my dad is a very science belief person. He works in a medical lab, and he doesn't really believe in ooh, but he even had to look up how to get ghosts out of your house. He told me that he had saged the house after my stepmom had told him about her experience, because he remembered my experience, and he's like, "Okay, there must be a spirit here." So he saged the house, he got it cleansed. My dad has never personally saw him, which is interesting. Oh, and this house used to be a parsonage, which is when a church owns a home, and part of the pastor's contract is you get to live in this house for free while you work for the church. So him and his family would live there. My personal theory is that this pastor had a family, and maybe the boy died on the staircase, and he just never got to leave that house. So yeah, that is my ghost story that has been verified by other members of my family. Here's a better look at the house. I hope that spirit has moved on, and good luck to the people that live there now.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another paranormal story time. I stitched this exact video a year ago now, and I talked about a really scary experience I had with my brother after he had passed away with what we would call a familiar spirit or a mimic, depending on what you believe in. I will say as a side note and a warning, I am a millennial. I don't know how to edit these videos very well. Bear with me. Thank you. I am not even kidding when I say for the last year, almost every day, someone has commented on my videos and asked for an update about if I had any confirmation from my brother, if I have had any closure at all, what's gone on, things like that. And I'm here to say that I do have an update and I am actually ready to share now. I will say for the past couple months, I haven't been doing story times because I had a really bad mental health episode. And when I started this series, I didn't know some of what I was getting myself into, and I wasn't totally ready to open that door yet. But I can fully and confidently say now that I am ready and I'm willing, and I would be more than happy to go on this journey with you guys. So without further ado, I will tell you the update that some of y'all have been waiting for. I do have a positive ending to this. This whole experience did give me a lot of closure, but I did work with a woman who happened to be a medium, and she had no knowledge of my brother or his passing, but she came up to me one day while we were at work and said, "There is a man that is trying to get your attention through me, because he knows that I can talk to you and kind of be the buffer between you both so that you can get the message." And I was willing and ready to accept whatever message it was from whoever it was. And she started describing what his personality was like, the things that he loved, things like that. And the one thing that really stuck out to me about what she had said was he really loved Halloween and wearing masks, and he loved chasing you around the house with those Halloween masks and scaring the crap out of you. And that's exactly what my brother did. He had so much fun doing that. He loved Halloween so much. And funny enough, now my daughter loves Halloween too. She started telling me that he was presenting himself as a little bit younger and asked to see a picture to verify that that's the person that she was seeing and talking with. And I showed her a picture of him right before he had passed. And she said, "No, that's not really what he looks like." And so I pulled up another picture of when he was in high school, and that's how he was appearing to her. So she had said that he kind of hit me upside the head and was like, "Why did you do that?" Like certain things in my life. And I'm like, "I'm just learning. I'm just a girl," you know? But then he had also told her to tell me that he had met my daughter before she had come to me and into this world. And I had begun crying at that point because all I had wanted was for my brother to meet my daughter and to know her. And so when I knew that he had met her before she came here and said how much he loved her and she was amazing and she'd grow up to be an amazing woman, and that she would be a positive light in this world, I still like get teary-eyed over it now. I'm sure you can kind of hear it in my voice, but I was just so amazed that he was coming to me and telling me that. And he had also said that he was looking over us and he knew I was buying a house, which I wasn't really telling many people at the time that I was looking for a house to buy either. So where I'm sitting right now is the house that I bought, and he had said that after I move in, watch for lights to go off, and that will be my confirmation that he's with us. So a couple weeks had passed. I kind of kept that in the back of my mind, like he's gonna show somehow that he's here when he's ready to do so. And one day, my daughter was super young, couple months old. She was playing in her little playpen area with all of her toys. And a lot of those toys were, you had to touch them in order to activate them and it to make noise, things like that. We walked across the house and I had started hearing all these toys go off in the kitchen, and those are the ones that were touch activated. I had a really calm feeling about it. I'd kind of figured that it might be him, and I just felt really good about the situation. And the next day, same woman came up to me and said, "Did you get the confirmation? He said that he wants you to know that what you saw yesterday was him." And I said, "Yes, I got it." And so she's like, "He wants me to remind you again that he's watching over you and your daughter, and he really loves her, and he really loves you too. And not to feel bad about not being able to hug him before he passed away." So something to note is that something I've always beat myself up about is when I last saw my brother, I didn't get out of the car to hug him. And I always regretted that, even though in the moment I was like a dumb teenager and I was just like, ugh, I'm not getting out of the car, you know? And he had told me he loved me and he couldn't wait to see me again. And then a couple weeks later, he was gone. And I'd always regretted that. And he told me not to, and that it's okay. And it made me feel a little bit better. So to me, this gave me a lot of closure. It made me feel better about the situation, and it allowed me to kind of move forward with my life and know that he was present with us and, you know, with the rest of my family, stuff like that, wherever they are. And I really hope you guys enjoy this update. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching all the way through, and I will see you in the next paranormal update. Bye.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
I've been wanting to share this story on the internet for so long, and I finally did recently on Reddit and YouTube, and I thought I would on here too. So in 2019, I was going to the hospital a lot for a family member that was there, and while we were there, a lot of really weird things happened, but this is definitely the weirdest, and it still haunts me to this day. So to get where we needed to go to in the hospital, we had to walk down this very long hallway, and at the end of the hallway, there was an archway, like a doorway with no doors, and you had to walk in front of that archway to go left, and that's the way we always went. We always dreaded walking down there just because it was so creepy. Think like back rooms, and there was never really a lot of people with us, and that just like added to the creep factor. So one day we were walking down the hallway like normal, and we see a man standing at the end of the hallway where the archway was, and his feet and body were facing the wall, but his head was turned perfectly down the hallway towards us. We were very spooked, especially because we had to walk kind of like in front of him and to the left to go where we needed to go. It was just very spooky. I'm going to try and give a little visual on what it looked like, but this was the wall. His feet and his body were facing the wall, and his head was turned perfectly down the hallway towards us. It seemed very robotic and very unnatural, and we ended up just walking past him, even though we were very uncomfortable, and we were thinking there must have been a logical explanation. He must have been standing at an elevator or looking at something. So later we went back, and there was nothing. He was just standing at a wall and staring at us. I don't remember him blinking. I really wish I would have looked to see if he was actually like standing on the ground and not like floating there. But I remember his eyes looking very like blue or like glow, like not glowing, but like his eyes were very prominent to me, and I don't remember him blinking. Again, he was like down the hallway, but yeah. I remember that he looked about late 20s, early 30s maybe, and he was dressed pretty nicely. Not like suit and tie or anything, but he definitely was not a doctor. He just looked very out of place and very unnatural. And his movement, like just the way he was standing was so unnatural. But yeah, it's been almost 6 years. Me and my mom still talk about this a lot just because it is like engraved in our heads forever. And I still see him standing there quite frequently. So, if anybody has experienced anything similar or has an explanation, let me know. I want to start doing more of my like own personal paranormal stories and stuff. So if you're interested, let me know.
Okay, I have a ghost story to tell you. I'm in a new hospital and I was walking around, and empty and it's kind of creepy, and I heard some noises, and I started thinking about all the different like ghost stories that I have from, you know, years of working in ICU. But the creepiest story that I have, sorry about that noise, it's loud, but I can't turn it off. The creepiest story that I have. So I worked in a hospital that the unit that I worked on had never been anything but a cardiovascular ICU, or cardiothoracic. It was hearts and lungs, and heart transplants, total artificial heart, lung transplants, anything cardiac related. So on this floor, there was a patient that we had one time. There was a particular room that kind of gave you the heebie-jeebies when you walk past it. And we had a patient in that room that he was not a nice human. He was somebody that I had actually known like outside of the hospital, so I never took care of him because it was a conflict of interest. But one night he was confused, so he was just saying kind of mean, hateful things. But one of the things that he kept saying is he kept using a racial slur, the N-word, and he kept saying, "Get that little racial slur out of here. He's playing in here. Get him out of here. I don't want that little racial slur in my room." And everybody, like, this man, I didn't like him outside of, you know, the hospital and as a patient, and was confused, and it was not good. But anyway, he ended up leaving that room, got better, left. And then when you're in the hospital, you can get confused, and it's very normal for you to hallucinate. You have medications on board, like, you know, that's just kind of a normal thing. It just kind of, sometimes your true colors show up whenever you are on medications. You know, I've had women punch me that, you know, their family members say like, "Oh, they're so sweet and kind," but then they get on, you know, medications, and then they are, you know, hitting and kicking. And anyway, anesthesia can do that to you, as well as medications, and, you know, even your sodium gets off. You know, there's all sorts of things that can influence you. So we didn't think much of it. I think it was like 2 days later, not just a couple days later, we had the sweetest little old lady in that room, and I did take care of her. She was adorable. I swear she was, I can't remember, she was in her late 80s, but she was so sweet and so cute, poor lady. But she was not confused, and she kept telling me, she was like, "Can you get my purse for me? Give me my purse. I really need my purse. It's over there." And I was like, what do you need your purse for? And a lot of times we don't give patients their belongings, because there might be extra pills in there, and we got to know what they're taking. So I said, "Well, let me help you go through your purse, and, you know, what is it that you want out of there?" She says, "I have some candy in there. I really want to get some candy for that little boy. He keeps coming in here and playing, and I have some candy that I'd like to give him." And I said, "What, there's no little boy? And she says, "Yes, there's a little black boy. He keeps playing over there in the drawers, and he's looking for some food, but I have some candy, and I'd like to give it to him." This unit had never been a pediatric unit. There was never children. There wasn't any children on the unit, and nobody was visiting, especially no children. It's pretty creepy.
So I'm going to tell you about how my haunted house saved my life. When I was about 8 years old, my mom and I moved into this house, and it was just her and I. And immediately upon moving into the house, there was a lot of creepy things that were going on. We used to have this old sump pump in the basement because our basement would flood, and that thing was heavy. You could not move it. And the only way that it moved is if you like stepped on it and it became unlevel. So sometimes we'd be watching TV and you'd hear like the tink of the cover to the sump pump. And again, this is heavy. It doesn't move unless you physically step on it. And then I decided to buy a mirror for my room. When you walk in my bedroom door, there was a wall. And when you look into the mirror, you could see the doorway. Well, I'd say probably 2 or 3 times, sometimes maybe more, I would walk into my room, and right there in the mirror, you can see a man in the doorway. And again, it's only my mom and I, and the guy was always like a gray shadow with
kind of like a flannel on. He looked older. So after a while, I just got used to it. You know, I was used to the spirit being there. He was a friendly spirit. You know, nothing ever happened that freaked me out, that I felt unsafe. So one night I decided I was going to have a sleepover with my friends, and back then it was cool to camp in your living room, so I put a tent in my living room. And when my friend and I woke up in the morning, we were like, it is so cold. So we unzipped the tent, and we get out of our tent, which we were sleeping in the living room, and all the windows in the house were open about this much, you know, probably 1 inch to 2 inches. And my mom was like, did you open the windows? I was like, no, I didn't open the windows. And I asked Brittany, I said, did you open the windows? She was like, no, I didn't open the windows. Come to find out, our furnace broke. And if you know anything about furnaces, if they break, they can release carbon monoxide into the air. So at that time, I didn't know, you know, how the windows got open. My mom didn't know how the windows got open, but we were just grateful because we didn't die from carbon monoxide poisoning. So we decided that we were going to look into the people who lived in the house before us. So come to find out that a mother and a daughter died in my bedroom, and the father came home from working in the slate quarry and found the mother and the daughter dead in my bedroom from carbon monoxide poisoning. So to this day, I'm super grateful for the spirit that lived in my home when I was growing up, because if that spirit didn't do what it did, I would not be here today.
My grandma's house was extremely haunted. Story time. So one night when I was a teenager, I snuck out of grandma's house and I was walking on the back side of the property where a big field is. It was a full moon that night, so it was very bright. You could see all the way across the field. Me and my ex-boyfriend met up out there at the edge of the field, and we start walking through the field together holding hands. And he looked up at the scarecrow, which was over half a field away, and he said, that thing always creeps me out. Why won't your papa get rid of it? I said, that scarecrow's been in our family for a long time, but trust me, it's the least of your worries. Oh lie. We get up to where the scarecrow is and start to walk past it, and one of its arms dropped off the nail. So I'm trying to calm my little boyfriend down like, dude, it's windy. Of course, it's an old nail from 100 years ago. It's got to fall down at some point. Might as well be right now. So we kiss and make out for a couple of hours, and then we decide it's getting a bit late and we're pushing our luck, so we better go ahead and go home before someone realizes we're gone. So I'm sneaking back up the driveway, and I can see my bedroom window from where I was. And that was when I seen a silhouette through the curtain. So I'm nervous. I shut my window, check the kitchen, nothing's in there, and then I go to bed. The next morning, I meet my little boyfriend at the bus stop, and he says, Alicia, I gotta tell you something. I can tell he is scared. He said something happened last night when I was walking home, and I just don't even know how to tell you this because I don't know if it was real or not. He said when I crawled through my bedroom window, I saw a tall black shadow with red eyes standing at my bedroom door, but when I cut the light on, it disappeared. So a couple days later, he decided he didn't want to date me anymore. It wasn't like in the movies how when your friends find out you live in a haunted house, so they try to help you get rid of it. No, they always abandoned me, but who could blame them? But back in the early 90s, me and my friend were staying at my grandma's house watching TGIF. You know, Family Matters, Boy Meets World. Now, this friend had lived in my grandma's house because her mom dated one of my relatives, so she knew about all the weird, creepy stuff that went on there, and she was terrified of this house. And just like me, she would not walk down the hallway, go to the bathroom, go in the attic, or go outside at nighttime by herself because she knew what would happen. We're watching Step by Step when a commercial of Pee-wee's Big Adventure comes on, and it freezes on large Marge's face when her eyes and tongue sticking out. So we run to my room, and my door doesn't have a doorknob. It's got a string and a screw. The string is barely hanging on to the screw when all of a sudden, bam, a gust of wind blows the door wide open, and me and her fall back on the bed. It scared the crap out of us. I still feel guilty about this, but one night I dared my friend to go upstairs and stand in the attic in the pitch black dark with the door shut for 10 seconds. So she went up there and shut the door. So I get my papa's old pocket watch and I count down 10 seconds. And when the time was up, I said, okay, you can come back down. But when she tried to open the door, it was stuck. She couldn't get out. She was like 7 or 8 years old. So she started screaming, crying, banging on the door. Could not get it open. I ran up there and was snatching on the door. I couldn't push it open, like something was holding that door shut. So I said, I'm gonna go get my papa to come open the door. She said, no, please don't leave. There's something up here with me. And then I could hear something talking to her through the door. She started screaming, banging, and kicking the door. Open the door, open the door. Please get me out of here. And I couldn't get the door open. And then Grandma come running up. And when Grandma got up there, she opened the door right up. So Grandma got the paddle and whooped my ass because she thought I was trying to scare my friend by holding the door shut. But me and my friend both told her the door got stuck before I even got up the stairs. Neither one of us was holding that door shut. One of the scariest things that ever happened to me while babysitting, story time. Now, I was 15. I've been babysitting for a few years at this point, so I had a lot of experience with kids. They love me. Well, a family friend asked if I would go babysit their 7-year-old son for a couple of days while they went out of town to Myrtle Beach, so I said, sure, that was great money for me. So the parents put their bags in the car. They showed me where everything is. Now, his mom made it clear to me that he has a very active imagination and that because his daddy let him watch horror movies the week prior, he's been having nightmares and making things up, saying that he's been seeing stuff around the house that's not there. So they get their stuff in the car, they give their son a kiss, and they leave. So I'm flipping through all the satellite channels, you know, checking out different shows, eating popcorn, little boy's playing with his toys, drinking his little juicy juice, and we're just having a good time. So I go in the kitchen to put a frozen pizza in the oven, and all of a sudden, this little boy comes flying out the living room, running up to me, and then wraps around my leg, just looking in the living room and then looking at me, back and forth. I said, "Damn, son, are you okay? What happened?" He said, "She's in there, she's in there." I said, "Who's in there?" He said, "Her," but I didn't see nothing. And before I can push him any further, he walks over and sits in front of the TV and starts ignoring me. We're sitting on the couch watching TV, and their couch was in the middle of the room, so you could walk around it. Well, this little boy starts looking behind the couch and then back at the TV. So I start looking back behind us. You know, it's like a natural reaction when you see somebody else doing that, you start doing it. The more he did this, the more I felt like somebody was standing behind us, but I don't see anything. So I get up and walk across the room, and from there I can see the hallway. And for a second, something stood out to me. At the end of the hallway, it looked like someone was peeking around the corner like this. But when I cut the light on, it was gone, so I thought my mom was playing tricks on me. My anxiety's peaking, so I'm like, okay, it's the first time you've been left alone in someone else's house. Calm down, go take a shower and go to bed. But while I'm taking a shower, I get the weirdest feeling like somebody's standing outside of the shower curtain. Now, they had a big-ass bathroom, so I was like, dude, it's a new place, it's a big bathroom, you're not used to this. Just stop freaking out. But I have to keep sticking my head out the shower curtain to make sure nobody's there because I'm getting that vibe like somebody is there. So I peek out the shower again and bam, this kid is standing in the doorway crying. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "It's gonna get me. It's in there. I just saw it. Can I stay here with you? I'm scared." I said, "Yes, stay right there. Just turn the other way." And then I dry off and get dressed in the shower so he can't see me. Now it's about 11 o'clock at this point and he's still wide awake. So we sit there and talk for a little while. We play with Legos, Play-Doh. I'm just trying to wear him out so he'll go to sleep. Well, finally around 2 a.m., he falls asleep. Now, it was already so late, I didn't have time to unpack my clothes, so I just get in the bed and I go to sleep. About 10 minutes later, I hear this youngin' screaming again. Before I can even get out of the bed, I hear him thunk, 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 and he's already running into my room, jumps into bed with me. He's screaming to the top of his lungs, "She's there in my room, behind the door. She's gonna get me if I'm alone. Please don't make me go back in there." So we're laying there in the bed together, and he says, "I know you think I'm making stuff up. I promise you I'm not. She was there. I saw her." I said, "Honey, I believe you. It's okay. Just relax and close your eyes and start taking some deep breaths." This child has one hell of a grip on me. Like, he's wrapped around me like a python, so I could tell he was really scared. Like, he really thought something was going to snatch his ass off that bed. So I just held him and hoped that maybe he would calm down. Now, I know a lot of you would just tell these kids to hush and go to bed, but I'm not like that. I went through the same thing as a child. I would see things that were not there, and nobody else believed me. So I wanted him to know that I believed him and I was protecting him. So I reached over to the nightstand and I tapped that old school touch lamp 3 times and put it on the brightest setting so it lit up the room. That way we would feel more safer and we'd get some sleep. Then I start hearing some distant thunder, and then it starts pouring rain. I think, oh, well, that sounds relaxing. So because of that storm, my ass knocked out. I was doing some good sleeping until about 30-40 minutes later. That was when I abruptly woke up to the bed shaking. It felt like a small tremor, like a little earthquake. So I'm trying to get my eyes adjusted and wake up and figure out, why is the bed shaking? Apparently the storm knocked the power out because it was pitch black dark in that room, and the only time I could see anything was when the lightning struck. Well, once my head gets adjusted, I start hearing a noise like chattering of teeth. I'm laying there trying to figure out what the hell is that noise and what is shaking the bed. And that's when I look over and I see the little boy is sitting up on the other side of the bed with his hands holding the cover, and it's him shaking the bed. He's shaking that hard. And that chattering sound I heard was coming from his teeth. He was sitting here holding the covers with his eyes wide open and going, "Are you okay?" Because I thought he was having a seizure, but when I looked at him, his eyes darted over to mine, and I realized he was awake. He was so scared. Like, he couldn't move. He was frozen, shaking and chattering. I'm like, well, if he's not having a seizure, what is wrong with him? And that's when it clicks. He's sitting here staring at the door, so I look at the door. Y'all, let me tell you, in that moment, when that lightning flashed, I damn near shit my pants. It scared me so bad. Have you ever been so scared that your hands and arms and legs start tingling, they damn near go numb? When I looked at that bedroom door, there was someone's head peeking around the door like this, and you could only see their eyes. And when the lightning stopped flashing, I couldn't see anything anymore. It was complete darkness. That was when it really hit me. Holy crap, we're not alone. There's someone else in the house, and they're standing right there. But what really freaked me out was every time the lightning would strike, I could see more of that person's face. Like, it started like this, and then this, and this, and then I could see their actual mouth. This person was smiling ear to ear. I could barely take a breath in. All I could think was, what the hell is that thing? And of course the lightning stopped flashing, so for a few seconds it was completely dark, and I had that feeling again like someone was watching us and getting closer. and closer, and I was starting to panic. And when lightning struck a few seconds later, I could tell they were getting closer because now this motherfucker, person, thing, or whatever, was now at the foot of the bed, peeking over like this, staring at us. At this point, my damn teeth were chattering. All I could hear was between the both of us. So I pulled that little boy up on my lap in my arms as tight as I could because I didn't want whatever it was to try to snatch him out of my arms, and I held him real tight. So now when the lightning flashed, we could see its whole face peeking over the bed, smiling, looking right at us. So that was when fight or flight kicked in for me, and I remember the dad telling me that he'd put a loaded pistol in the nightstand and behind the headboard of this bed, so I start reaching around for it. And for some reason, my gut was telling me, you better keep your eyes on this thing. Every time the lightning strikes, pinpoint where it is with your eyes and don't take your eyes off or it's gonna jump. Reaching, trying to multitask, keep my eyes on it, hold the little boy, and feel around for this pew-pew, and I finally feel it, and I snatch it out of that holster and I hold it up. When the lightning struck, I pointed at this thing. I said, if you take another step, I'm gonna blow you into the next room. Get out and leave now. In that moment, something happened. I don't know what it was, but I could feel me looking into it and it looking into me, and that lightning flashed, and then all of a sudden the power cut back on. And no lie, as soon as the power came on, it was gone. I snatched him up out of the bed, grabbed that pew-pew, and ran to the kitchen and called 911. I stayed on the phone with them, the police came, and then I called the parents. I put the cop on the phone, they're talking, and then they tell the cop that they're not coming back until Sunday. Even though we're telling them we think there's an intruder in the house and their child's here, they don't give a shit. They're not coming home. They think it's our imagination playing tricks on us because the power went out and we're getting freaked out with the storm and everything. So I made it very clear I was not staying in their house another minute, and I was going to take their child back to my family's house, and that's where we would be. And they said, okay, fine, we'll see you on Sunday. So I asked the little boy if that was the first time he saw this thing, and he said no. He'd been seeing it for months, but this was the first time it got that close. Now, I knew he'd have to go back to that house, so the next day, me and my cousin went over and cleansed the entire house, hoping it would help. My grandma's house was extremely haunted. I don't know what happened on that land or in her house that made it so active, but that place was flooded with spirits. This was the kind of place that you did not want to stay overnight. It was bad enough being there during the day. My whole family had a lot of bad experiences in that house, but I always felt like something was really clinging to me for some reason, and I couldn't figure out why. This thing would not leave me alone. So this one day when I was 7 or 8 years old, I was out crawfishing. That was one of my most favorite things to do. So I'm leaning over the ditch bank, over the water, and I got my shovel down in the mud digging this big crawfish out. And when I just happened to glance at the reflection, I saw someone standing behind me, so I turned around, but there was nothing there. But I'm determined, and this is the biggest crawfish I ever seen, so I keep digging hard as I can. So I'm shoveling, throwing mud and water behind me like this, trying my best to get this damn crawfish, until I heard my name. Someone right there said, Alicia. So me thinking it was one of my elders, I stopped digging, turn around and say, what? But nobody was there. Now I knew it wasn't my grandparents because they never walked out that far in the woods to find us because we knew to be home by dark. So I start walking around asking, who called my name? What is it? And nobody answers me. So by now I'm shitting. I done lost that crawfish, lost my train of thought. So I get my bucket and shovel and I start walking back towards the house. And I get the weirdest feeling that somebody's walking behind me. So just like you see in the movies, I take off running. And behind me, I can hear a doot, doot, doot. When I turn around and look, I don't see nobody there until I got to Grandma's house. I turned around and that was when I seen a dark silhouette floating behind me. I didn't know what the hell it was, and I weren't about to find out, so I ran faster than Forrest Gump and got back to the house. Of course, I'm all jacked up trying to tell Grandma what just happened, but she's dismissing me and telling me that I need to wash my hands, take my boots off, and get ready for supper, so I do. And we had a big family at this time, and we all stayed in the house, and I remember this one night, my uncle had this really hot girl over that he'd been dating. So him and this girl go into his bedroom, and they start fooling around, and the next thing I knew, I heard his girlfriend screaming to the top of her lungs, and she come darting out the house naked as a jaybird. My grandma goes outside with a big blanket and wraps her up and tries to get her to come back in the house and calm down, but she refuses. She says, I'm not ever going back into your damn house, ever, and then she leaves naked. A few days later, my mama runs into her at the store and she said, girl, what happened? Did he do something? Did y'all fight? Like, why did you run out like that? She said that her and my uncle were doing the deed, and when they got done, she was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking for her drawers, bra and socks and all that, and then he walked out to the bathroom. Well, about 30 seconds later, he comes back into the room, pushes her down on the bed, and starts kissing and groping and fooling around, and she pushes him off and says, I gotta go, I'm in a hurry. And then she claims that his eyes turned black and his face began to change, so she took off running, and when she came out into the hallway, that was when she saw my uncle coming out the bathroom. So she looks back in the bedroom and looks at him in the hallway. She just takes off running naked. She only came back one time years later, and she wouldn't even come all the way in the house. She stood at the front door and wanted to keep the door open so she could leave whenever she wanted. Now, I got a lot of these about my grandma's house. If you want to hear them, let me know in the comments.
Whew, I almost went back there and got my bed, y'all. I almost forgot to give y'all this story time. So remember, this is not my story time. This is someone else's story time. They private messaged me. And if you would like to private message me and give me your story time, I don't mind telling it. All right, let's get into it. Now, this woman who gave me her story time is from South Carolina. She said that right now, the land that they own, her and her family, they've been owning this land for over 100 years. And right now it's being renovated. So she really, because of the renovation, I guess it sparked something, and she really wanted to know the family history. So she started asking her parents questions, and they kept tiptoeing. They really didn't want to give her any information. So she decided to give up on them, and she went ahead and she went to her great aunt. Now, when she got to the great aunt, and she started asking questions, the great aunt, whenever you ask older people questions, older people as in like 80s, 90s, they always get excited because it's just taking them back to the happiest times of their lives. And so she said that once she asked the great aunt, like, okay, so what's the saddest thing that happened on this land? She said the great aunt just stopped and looked at her, and she said, I remember this black man worked for my father. And he no longer wanted to work for my father. He had gotten him a new job. And she said that he told her father, I'm sorry, but I have a different job now. And her father was so upset, he talked about it for days. And she said days went by, and she remembers her father waking her up in the middle of the night and putting her in the truck. And she said she remembers his buddies. They were following behind him. And they pulled up somewhere, and she had no idea where. And she started looking around, and she said that she was confused. So she said that it all made sense once her father and his buddies went into this house, and they brought out this man. And the man was the black man that worked for her father, who had just quit. She said that they took that man from out of his home with his wife and his children, and they lynched him. And once they lynched him, she said that her father pretty much tried to act like it was no big deal. But she said after they lynched that man, she saw him every single day. Now, she really starts to remember when she was sleeping in her bed, and she said that he really pretty much was torturing her every single night. He didn't allow her to get any sleep. And when she did try to sleep and she did fall asleep, he would shake the bed and he would knock things over. Now, she said one night when she couldn't sleep, she went and got her father, and she said, I can't sleep because that man is in there and he keeps on, waking me up. And so the dad was like, it's all your imagination. You're tripping, pretty much. You're tripping. So to put her at ease, he decided to sleep in her room on the floor. And she says when he slept on the floor, her great aunt said that she woke up to him being yanked out of her room by his leg and being pulled down the hall. She said she ran to the door, she looked down the hall, and she could see that man that he had lynched. Now, when she got to the end of the hall, she checked on her father and, asking him if he's okay, and he couldn't stand up because his ankle was broken. So what's been happening recently with this young woman is because of the renovation, her and her family have been finding things. So she said that she found one of those little statue things, where they painted them black and had a little red thing tied around the head. I don't know if they call it Jemima things or what, but I know that they weren't good things to have. So basically, she said she found that, and her mom was just like, oh, they're worth a lot of money. You should go ahead and just take it home, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to sell it. Y'all, homegirl took it home, okay? And she said when she took it home, she said she had such a bad migraine. She just couldn't get rid of it. So she decided that she was going to just take a nap, took some Tylenol, took a nap. And she said when she woke up, she saw a black man. Now, mind you, she lives alone. And she don't got no black boyfriend, no black husband, none of that. I asked her all those questions. But she said that she saw this man. And she said that now she can't get rid of him. She said her family, they aren't religious. She didn't grow up in church. She doesn't know what to do. And, at a time like this. She just has no clue. But she really wanted some pointers. And baby, I am so sorry. I don't know what to do. You said you got rid of the object and he's still there. So you really need to, I'm speechless. You really need to find someone who can come and bless the home for you to get rid of him. Because if he can hurt your father's ankle like that, do you understand how vengeful this spirit is? Oh, Lord. So this woman ended up telling her family members about what happened. She went back to her great aunt and she told her great aunt, like, oh, I found these little, things with the renovation. And the great aunt started to describe what she found. And she said, oh, yeah, we had lots of those in the house, sitting on the shelves. So you done took this thing home, baby. And now he was connected to that. And even though you got rid of it, he said he found him a new home. That's pretty much what he said. Now, she also said that she said something to her other family members about it, but like she said, they're not religious. They don't believe in stuff like this. So, of course, they're not going to know what to do in a situation like this. And to her surprise, she said that her great aunt told her, oh, yeah, I told my dad about it. I told your parents about it. I told them, a long time ago that I saw this man after he was lynched. And everybody pretty much just think the great aunt is kooky. They think she out of her mind, honey. They think that woman is far gone. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm here for another story time, and this is not my story that I'm about to tell. This is someone else's. If you would like to send me your story time because you don't feel comfortable telling it yourself, I do not mind. Okay, let's get into it. Now, the woman who sent this story, she just moved to Kentucky. She just bought this 4-bedroom house. She said that she does not have a husband or children yet, and the house doesn't feel like a home. She said it just feels empty. She feels lonely. So to make it feel homier, she started to try to spruce it up. She started getting some furniture in there, but she came across this estate sale. And when she came across this estate sale, she just was looking for a few pieces. But I just want to stop right there. Listen to me. Hell no. Don't you buy nothing from no estate sale. Don't you buy anything from the secondhand stores, the furniture and stuff. No. When you driving down the street and you see somebody that put their couch out there, don't you grab that couch. Okay? I know that they be like, oh, but it was a $10 dresser. Yeah, and it come with a spirit or a demon. Cheap ain't always best. It ain't nothing worth your peace of mind, okay? All right, let's continue. Now, the woman gets to this estate sale and something caught her eye, and it was just, a necklace holder. And she was like, oh, I could use that. I have a few necklaces out. So she picked it up, and she said immediately the man came over. He was like, I'll let it go for $2. She gave the man the money, and she went on about her way. She got home, and she said she cleaned it and then put it on her dresser. Now, she said nothing started happening until a week after she bought that. Now, since it's a week later, she said that it was time for her to finally, start her job in the morning. She said she gets up and she starts walking down the stairs to go make her morning coffee. And she said it felt like somebody was on her heels, like really up on her. So she started walking faster, turned around, nothing was there. So she was just like, okay, I'm paranoid. Continues to the kitchen to make her coffee. And she started hearing movement just all over the house. So she called 911, rightfully so. When she called 911, they came out, they searched the home. They said it was clear, nobody was there. And she was like, okay, it's a bigger house, than I'm used to. So maybe I'm just, it's just a figment of my imagination. She let it go and she went to work. Now she got off work late, about 10 p.m. And when she got home, her furniture was rearranged. It wasn't left the way that she had originally put it. So, of course, she's scared. She said, oh, my God, somebody's been in here. And she called 911 again. They came out. They searched. Nothing. Nothing and no one was there. And so she's like, well, someone had to have been here because this is not how I left my furniture. So they told her, they said there's no sign of forced entry, nothing. I'm sorry to tell you, but nobody's here. So to make herself feel more comfortable, she called over some coworkers. And she's like, please come on over, let's just, make a time out of it. So they came over and she said they were having a bonfire outside. And while they were outside having some drinks and laughing it up, she said she just happened to glance up and she could see somebody staring down at them from the window. Now, she said that she wasn't the only one that saw the person standing in the window. Her friends saw it too. So one of her friends jumped up and called 911 immediately. And when she called 911, she said, please, someone's in my friend's house. We're scared. They came quick. Okay. And when they got there, they searched and they found nothing. So of course her friends are worried about her because they know what they saw too. And they decide they're going to stay with her. So they all go to the guest room, to their rooms. The two friends go to their guest room and the woman, she goes to her room. Now, remember, if you feel that something is in your home, please don't split up. That's what they do in scary movies. Don't be stupid, okay? Now, as soon as the friend goes to lay down, she had finished cleaning up the kitchen and everything. She went upstairs to her room. Now, as soon as the friends, I guess, started getting comfortable and they fell to sleep, she said that she just wanted to walk around the house. She couldn't get to sleep. So she started walking around the house. And she said she heard one of her friends scream. So she ran to one of her friend's guest room. And she said as soon as she walked in there, the friend had this large scratch on her back. Okay? The friend, mind you, they're all in separate rooms, so no one else could have done that. Then she says that her other friend screamed and said that she could not see. She ran in there and she was like, what do you mean you can't see? Like, what do you mean? She's like, I can't see anything. I can't see. So she said that she was so terrified and she didn't know what to do that she just took both of her friends, she put them in a car and they drove away. They went somewhere else. So she said she came back the following morning and she really didn't want to go inside. But she said she just got chills up and down her body. She didn't know what to do. So she just stood there outside of the doors for a minute and she finally walked in. And she said when she walked in, she was just like, is it on a burial ground? So that's a good question to ask though. So I was like, okay. So she said, I need to call somebody who knows about this kind of stuff. So she called one of her old coworkers that, used to stay in the same area as her before she moved to Kentucky. And she said that when she was talking to that, woman, the woman told her, I'm like, hey, did you buy anything recently that maybe, she said, it doesn't just have to be the land. It could be something that you brought home. So the woman was just like, I got a new necklace holder. She was like, but it's not that. She was just like, where did you get it? And she said, an estate sale. She said, an estate sale. So even her friend was just like, girl, what were you thinking? So the woman told her, she said, you need to take it back. You need to take it back. She said, because right now it seems like it's just beginning. So this woman said that she has not taken it back because she doesn't believe that it's the necklace holder. Okay. I'm hoping that she opens up her eyes and she understands that it's not always the land that is haunted. Now, yes, there could be a burial ground nearby. Who knows? But the fact that you brought that necklace holder into your home and it was from an estate sale, like, I'm real worried because you do know that sometimes / majority of the time an estate sale is because someone is deceased. Listen to cousin. Don't do this no more. You hear me? Don't do this no more. Get rid of it immediately.
I grew up in a haunted house, and this thing followed us no matter where we went. So I told y'all in the last video about my grandma's house being haunted Well, when I was a few years old in the late 80s, my parents finally got their own place. I wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and I have to pee. And weirdly enough, in this house, I wasn't scared like I was at Grandma's. So I take off and go to the bathroom, no problem. So I'm sitting on the toilet trying to pee, and I start hearing some kind of scratching noise outside the bathroom door. And that's when a big thunder hit, boom. So I jump up off the toilet, run back to my bedroom, hiding under the covers. It was after I jumped on the bed that I realized I left the bedroom door open. So now I could see straight down that dark hallway. My little 5-year-old brain decides I'm gonna be Billy Badass tonight, and I'm gonna get up and shut that bedroom door by myself, and I'm not gonna wake my sister up. I'm not gonna let this thing push me around like it did at Grandma's. I'm gonna stand up to it now. That was a big mistake. So I walk up to the bedroom door, my shoulders bowed up and my chest out. I grabbed the handle, and as I'm shutting it, I see something standing at the end of the hallway. Now at first I thought it was my sister, so I'm like, Blank, is that you? But then when I turned around, she's laying in bed. I'm like, well, if that's her, then whose eyes are those? That was where I saw my Pee Wee Herman doll standing at the end of the hallway. I had been looking for this doll all day. It was my favorite, most prized possession as a child. I loved Pee Wee's Playhouse. I slept with this doll every night, and I was so glad I found it. But not after this. So I start trotting down the hallway thinking, oh, there's my Pee Wee Herman doll. I'm just gonna go grab it and then run back to bed. Y'all, that Pee Wee Herman doll stood up and took off running at me. And as I backed up towards the door, it started growing in size until its head touched the ceiling. That thing's face started stretching out away from its head. The eyes were getting bigger, its nose was stretching out real pointy, it had big teeth, and its smile was touching its ear. It was so tall, it was slumped over, and its head was still hitting the ceiling, and its shoulders were touching each wall. Straight up nightmare fuel. I pissed my pants, slammed the bedroom door shut, jumped into my bed, and hid under the covers. I started crying because I couldn't understand, why would my Pee Wee doll do this to me? I love it so much. That doll sit outside our bedroom door all night long saying, Pee Wee's Playhouse. And what was so creepy was every time it said a line, that line would start to drag. You know how when the batteries die and it sounds like it's talking in slow motion? That's what it was doing. I couldn't determine whether this was real or a dream, so I started trying to wake myself up. Next morning, I wake up scared, but I realized it was just a nightmare, thank God. But when I get up out of bed, I smell pee, and that's because I was still wearing the pants I peed in the night before. And when I opened our bedroom door, that little Pee Wee Herman pull-string doll was sitting up against the door. So I snatched that Pee Wee doll up, and I go throw it in the trash so my parents can't see, because I knew they had spent some money on this doll. We were dirt poor, but I threw it in the trash anyways because it scared me so bad. 3 days later, I find Pee Wee sitting on my bed. My mom found it in the trash, cleaned it up, and brought it back because she thought I accidentally threw it away. My mama ended up throwing that doll away a few months later because she swore it kept talking to itself while we were at school, and it scared the hell out of her. Mama said she started having nightmares that doll was chasing her down a hallway. Now that would make a damn good horror movie.
Good morning, TikTok fam. It is so nice to meet all of you guys that have joined my page over the course of the last few days. Huge welcome to all my new Casey girlies and Casey guys that are here and follow. I got kind of a few requests for those that are interested in my paranormal adventures, if you will. I got a couple of requests to maybe tell some of my ghost stories and maybe share some of my experiences of things that have happened. And I'm totally open to doing that for those that are willing to listen. I know that's not a thing for everybody, but for me, I've always found it fascinating. Like, the paranormal world just super fascinates me. And having the kind of third sense that I do, you know, it's nice to be able to rewrite history if you can, and to be able to tell the stories of those that couldn't tell them themselves. So I enjoy it. But just a couple like past instances about how I knew that I had gifts. I started having gifts when I was about 10 years old, shortly after I lost my grandfather. I would communicate with him. Mom never believed me until the one time I told her a story that he had told me that she had never told me and nobody else in the family did. So that was the point where she's like, oh my gosh, maybe this is a thing. Maybe you do have spiritual gifts. And I truly believe that everybody has intuition. Everybody can use that third sense that they all have. It's whether you choose to really want to expand on it and experiment with it and be open to receiving and whatnot, if the paranormal is a thing for you. So but that's kind of how I started with it. I really kind of dove into the paranormal when I was an adult though. About 5-6 years ago, I found an amazing group of people who I love calling my family now. They're my parafam, Erica, Mike, and Sam. They run a company here out of Kansas City called Epic VIP Events with the mysterious Mike and Sam. My friend Sam is an awesome paranormal investigator. She is also a psychic medium, but no, she does not do work on the side reading people. She just got her Reiki master not too long ago, and I'm super proud of her for that. Papa Mike, we all call him Papa Mike, is super into all things Bigfoot, aliens, so on and so forth. And he loves to be one of us girls when we go on our retreats and stuff. And then Erica is their lead investigator and kind of my sister from another mister, whom I love absolutely dearly. But if you're into doing investigations and stuff, I highly recommend you check out some of their events. You can find them on Eventbrite, you can find them on Facebook. They don't quite have a TikTok yet, but more to come in the future, I'm hoping. They're an amazing, amazing group, and I owe a lot of what I know to Sam and Erica especially. So, kind of a couple fun things recently that happened. So, within the last year, I'd say maybe last August, I was at an Independence. They have all these little mystic fairs around here in Kansas City, and I frequent a lot of them. And I met a medium there by the name of Noelle Brown. And that was the very first time I met Noelle. She is an incredible human being. And let me tell you, that girl was on point. So I started my reading with her, and there is one thing that I keep with me on my person at all time, and I'll show you guys that in just a second. But she had told me that there was a female spirit that was coming through, and that this female spirit absolutely just ranted and raved about how amazing her headstone looked. That, you know, it's so beautiful. There's, you know, these butterflies, and there's flowers all the time, and little garden flags and solar lights, and she just ranted and raved about how beautiful her headstone was. And immediately when she said that, I'm like, I think I know who this is. And she started talking about more about, you know, her music sense, and, you know, that's how her and I connected. And that's when it hit on the head for me that, okay, this is Dolores. Dolores was my spouse's grandmother who passed away a few years ago. I was pretty close to her. We shared a lot of things in common. I was kind of the piece that came into the family and maybe brought a couple people back together that really should have been from the beginning. So, but anyway, Dolores was love and light in all ways, shapes, and forms. She's just a beautiful soul. And Noelle had brought up that she's like, this spirit is telling me you have a purple angel with you. Little did she know that the one piece that I keep with me on my person at all times is my amethyst angel. This is what I consider my protection piece. And she made her way of telling me that that was Dolores's way of letting her know that she's with me is by being with my purple angel. And I'm going to tie that into my very first ghost story for you guys. So not long after that, it was September of last year, we met for Sam's birthday out at Belvoir Winery, and it was just a bunch of us girls. We just kind of got together and hung out and whatnot. Grabbed a glass of wine, and for those of you that know Kansas City and know Liberty, you know the Belvoir Winery used to be the Oddfellows home. It was a boarding school one time. There was many things that happened there. There's over 10,000 deaths recorded on the property. So there's a lot of historical things that had gone on there. So when it was an old folks home in the building directly across or to the side of the winery, if you're looking at the winery, it's the building on the left-hand side. The downstairs used to be a morgue. I never knew that, and the girls were like, wait, you've never been down to the morgue? I was like, no, I've not been down to the morgue here. I've investigated here 1,000 times, but I've never been to the morgue. So one of our girls was like, let's go down to the morgue. It's like, okay, cool. Little did I know, the one thing I did not have with me is this. So Gemma, sorry, my cat is like scratching at my screen door and it's irritating me. Anyway, so my girlfriend and I, we went down to the morgue. Before we walked in, we say our prayers of protection. You know, we walk in, we acknowledge spirit, you know, thank them for being here, want to let them know that, you know, we're just here to solely communicate. We're not here to hurt or harm them in any way. We just want to get to know them, get to know their story, and so on and so forth. So when you walk into this morgue area, which is closed off now, but you walk in, there's some rooms over here to the left, and there's a hallway down to the right. Well, the very last room on the hallway on the right has a lot of commercialized washers and dryers. So I was standing in one position, my friend was standing in the other position. All of a sudden, when we're in front of this room, my back went ice cold. My entire back, from my head to my heels, was ice cold. And my friend was saying, hey, like my left shoulder, 'cause she was standing to my right, my left shoulder's really cold. Are you okay? I was like, I'm fine. And I acknowledged, I'm like, okay, thank you, Spirit, for coming forward. Because I think that was, you know, somebody's way of letting me know, hey, you're in my space. And whatnot. So I acknowledged Spirit and I said, you know, thanks for coming forward. Again, we're not here to hurt or harm you, but I'm going to ask you to take a step back. Because another fun fact about Jessica, I'm allergic to the cold. Cold does not like me. I will break out in hives. Did not happen in this instance, but we recognized that. And at that moment, I had realized, crap, I didn't have Dolores with me. I didn't say anything, but it was really funny because my friend had started talking about the last time she was down there that there was a spirit named Dolores. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a coincidence. You know, that was my husband's grandmother's name was Dolores. And no sooner did I say that, and keep in mind, it was just me and her down there. There was nobody else down there. I had a rock kicked up at my left ankle. She said, I'm out. We said, thank you. And we kind of walked the other way. And it didn't scare me. It was more just kind of a startling type of thing. But I definitely believe that that was Dolores' way of letting me know, hey, there may not be some happy things down here. You should have brought me to protect you. So there's your first ghost story from me. Like I said, I think the paranormal world is absolutely fascinating. There's a lot of great places around here in Kansas City to investigate. Some in Atchison, such as the McIntyre Villa. The Alexander Major's house is over off State Line in Warnall, and there's just some really cool places to investigate, even as close as Liberty at the Belvoir Winery. But there's your first ghost story. I will definitely have some more for you guys, but I hope you have an amazing weekend. I hope you guys are able to take Sunday and just kind of rest and relax. We've got a little bit more work to do, but I know I'll get it done quick and I'll be able to chill before some of these storms come up and pop. So everybody be safe in the next couple days. But until next time, peace, love, and light.
If you're easily spooked and you want to have a good night's sleep tonight, don't watch this. Back again with another spooky, unexplainable story. This one comes from my cousin Gretchen. This story takes place in upstate New York. Gretchen was about 18 or 19 years old, and unfortunately, her friend passed away unexpectedly in an accident. She goes to the funeral, and after the funeral, her guy friend offers to give her a ride home. She agrees. They get in the car and they start driving. And they're just driving along, laughing, talking, having a good time, listening to music. Nothing's out of the ordinary. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he slams on his brakes. Gretchen is sitting there confused. She's like, what the hell's going on? Like looking around, thinking he sees a deer or whatever, or some sort of animal. She doesn't see anything. So she's trying to ask what's going on, and he's just not responding to her. He's just sitting there frozen. Eventually, he throws the car in gear and they speed away. He doesn't say anything until about 5 miles down the road. She's like, what's going on? And he's like, you didn't see her? And she's like, see who? Who are you talking about? What? And he's like, the girl in white. You didn't see the girl in white? And she said, no, I didn't see anything. So apparently this guy saw, I don't know if it was a child, a little girl, some sort of ghostly, weird figure that only he could see. Yeah, they really never talked about it again. He drove her home after that, and she just carried on with her night. She told me that if she were to reach out to him and ask him about the girl in white, he would freak out because he hates talking about it to this day. So yeah, this was probably about 15 or 18 years ago at this point, and she still thinks about it all the time. If anybody has any other weird things that they've seen at night driving around a rural area, I'd love to hear the story. Send it to the email in my bio, like and follow for more content like this. Okay, bye.